Our podcast is a part of the World Podcast Network, now with over 1,000 podcasts. Visit the World Podcast Network at worldpodcast.network to listen to podcasts in over 12 genres. Come vote our podcast episodes up and help us rise on the leaderboard. If you have a podcast of your own, you can join for free. Welcome to Reality D times 2, the podcast where we discuss all the trash reality TV we love to hate. I am Tanika, and today we are going to be talking The Bachelorette, the finale. This is it. We're closing it out with this episode. So just a little bit of an announcement, just so we are all on the same page. Um, so I'm hoping that I'm gonna get this episode out to you today. So today being Tuesday, at the 7 o'clock mark, Eastern. That's what I'm hoping I'm gonna be doing, which will mean that there will be no episodes tomorrow, as I will be in the office and won't be able to do any recording, at all. So that's kind of where we're at. Maybe, well, trying to think of what we usually watch on a Tuesday. Um, yeah, probably not going to be doing any like bonus episode, like a Below Deck or anything like that, which I do know that we're behind on Below Deck. So last week's Below Deck, there won't be any episode for that one. But if anything interesting does come up, I'll talk about it when I do talk Below Deck again. But it probably won't be, there probably won't be any Below Deck episodes until later on in the week. I think I've watched like maybe 10 minutes of last week's episode. So yeah, there's not really there's not gonna be one for last week, but we'll see how it goes for this week. I know that's almost done, so I don't want to not talk about it. Um, so yeah, so with that being said, if there is gonna be the episode coming out later on today, there will not be an episode at all tomorrow, as I will not be able to record because I will be in the office. So that's kind of where we're at, but we'll pick back up again Thursday. With Thursday, you will most likely be getting all the Forbidden Love episodes. I'm gearing for that to be in one episode, but if not, it'll be two separate episodes. Um, so that's the plan. You'll get that, and then we will be. What I'm planning to do is kind of do Forbidden Love, get that over with. I'm going to do the first episode of B90, go to toe, finish that up, and then go back to B90. And then we should be pretty caught up for the most part. My hope and my dreams is that I can get some Selling Sunset to you starting by either the end of this week into next week. That is my plan, but we'll see how that goes. Uh, but yeah, that's basically it for any announcement on the top of the episode. I believe I have some hot goss, so let's see where we're at there. I do. I do have some hot goss. So this has to do. Actually, I think I'll hold on to that for B9, for Below Deck. Um, okay, so let's do this. So Susie Evans, um, is kind of, if I remember, I think she's the one who was with Clayton. So on Friday, August 30th, episode of the Almost Famous podcast, Susie revealed that she still has some regrets over her split with Clayton. She said, quote, "I have regrets from how the last one went, to be honest, even though I feel like I was mostly private about that too. Even the little bit that you give to people, like the way people recap it or put their own twists on it, you make assumptions. It can be perceived just in a way that you don't want it to be." After they went their separate ways, Susie became friends with Justin Glaze, who appeared as a contestant on the season 17 of The Bachelorette and later joined season 8 of Bachelor in Paradise. I think he was Justin, right? Is that who I said it was? Yeah, that's Marshall's cousin. It was on Katie Thurston's um, uh, season. Marshall from Love Is Blind, for those who don't know. Um, so yeah, they went public back in January, which I do remember this. However, on August 28th, Justin told Almost Famous podcast that the two were no longer an item. He said on that podcast, quote, "Susie and I were not together. We are doing our best to kind of, like I said, protect each other, keep things private as we try to navigate what this looks like for us." He admitted that their breakup had not been easy, but also shared that the two still have a ton of love for each other and are on great terms. He said, "We still talk and are in communication. Like I said, we are still prioritizing each other, ourselves, our relationship." Justin's confession could have been brought on by him seeing, quote, comments all the time asking if he and Susie were still together, though he added that he is not one to go into great detail about my private life. "I'm very fortunate to have someone like Susie in my life." I believe this was him who said this, quote, "We are always on the same page about our relationship. So when this first happened, we decided, like, I'm not saying the likes, fuck that. Sorry. We're not gonna make some joint post. We're going to figure this out together. We're going to keep it private. I'm sure people will catch on eventually. And when we're ready to talk about it, that's what we'll do. I'm just very fortunate to be at the place we are at right now." So that's that. I wish them the best. Let's move on to the next piece of podcast. Since I just brought up Marshall, brought up Love Is Blind, if you thought that the American version of Love Is Blind is going to sit back and let the UK just have this one, you're incorrect. Love Is Blind is coming back. Season 7 is set this time in Washington, D.C., and is coming on October 2nd. And obviously, we'll be talking about that. I'll see if I can get Ava on an episode. I'm going to talk to Sharon to see if she'll hop on an episode as well, an episode or two. So I will see what that looks like once we get to that. But that is coming October 2nd. What else do we have? So even though I have not yet talked about B90, obviously I am watching. I know what's kind of going on, obviously. So this one's a little interesting. This is in respect to Lauren, who is with Faith, who is potentially, we're doing a toe version on B90. So Lauren shared details about his difficulties growing up as a gynosexual. I want to understand exactly what that means. I feel like he did explain that on the episode, but anyway, in Washington during the premiere. So he did talk about it. I just don't remember. He also shared a lot of information about his sexual preferences. However, not that any of this matters just because you have a certain preference. He never said that he had not been with women before. He just said that he has a certain preference. That's it. So I just want to point that out because how this article is worded is kind of being like, well, how can he be into, women with penises if he's been with women with vaginas? Well, he never said that he hadn't been. But anyways, here, Lauren left out some pretty important information about his background. He was married and he has 2 children. So here's the background on that. According to court documents, Lauren married a woman in Washington on Halloween in 2011. Lauren was 21 years old at the time, and his ex-wife was 19. The marriage lasted a little more than 2 years before Lauren's ex filed for divorce on December 30th, 2013. Lauren and his ex have 2 children together, a girl and a boy. At the time of the divorce filing, their daughter was 3 years old, and their son was not yet 1. Very simple math indicates that they had their daughter before getting married. Again, not shocker. The couple's divorce dragged out for almost as long as their marriage. The decree of dissolution was filed in October of 2015. Then they kind of get into the fact that Lauren does owe some child support. So this is going to be interesting with a person who has the financial situation that he does, which of course we will talk about. Last month, Lauren started a GoFundMe campaign to create a quote, LGBT community center in the Philippines offering housing, education, and connection to those who seek help. The campaign has a goal of $10,000 but there's been no donation so far. I mean, it seems like a great idea. I wouldn't trust him though. I wouldn't trust that this man is actually going to open up an LGBT community center for people who need it when we're talking about a person who has no money. I just wouldn't trust it. Um, this is in quotes. It appears, no, sorry, not quotes, brackets. It appears Lauren always has a GoFundMe going. His previous GoFundMe was for a quote, transgender owned coffee shop in the Philippines. It ended by default after being up for a year. The listing is no longer available to view as of December of 2023. The campaign had received no donations. He said, quote, nothing is more important to me than helping others. He wrote that in a new campaign description, but I have an evil ex-wife and fight just to make rent, but plan on finding a way to devote my life to charity. That just goes to show that he isn't doing this for good purposes or selfless purposes. According to court documents, Lauren's quote-unquote ex-evil wife filed a motion to modify child support in June of 2019. An order to adjust child support was then approved later the same month. So, one more thing. So, the new order requires Lauren to pay $767 a month. He is also required to split shared costs like uninsured medical expenses, daycare, and long-distance travel expenses. According to the filing, Lauren's income was based on a minimum because he was, quote, voluntarily underemployed at the time. So that's basically that. And that's it for hot goss. So let's jump into this dumpster fire. The reason that we are here, The Bachelorette, season 21, episode 10, the finale / after the final rose. So we are in the studio as we always are. And I did notice that Joan is also in the audience with Mark just sitting just a few seats away from her, but not beside her. No, she's sitting beside Neil Lane. But yeah, I did notice that. So, of course, we have Jesse here. And he does say, spoiler, something that has never happened is going to happen on this finale. Oh boy. So we're heading back to Hawaii to go through this. So she is going to be seeing her family today, and obviously the guys are going to be meeting her family. So we have her mom and her aunt, who are gorgeous women. And we also have her brother James and her best friend, I believe her name is Nicole. And as soon as Jen walks into the room, her mom just starts bawling. It's so sweet. She tells them that, Marcus and Devin are the ones that will be here. And she says she loves both of them, but has not been told by one of them, you guess who, that they love her. So I did like Jen's dress. It was very cute. So Devin is up first, and he comes bearing gifts. So they basically do like the catch up, how things have been kind of going throughout the journey for them. He talks about the similarities between the two of them and their upbringing and stuff like that. So they to go through that. Her mom thinks that Devin is a very nice man, but she does think that they need more time. Mom, we all believe that everyone needs more time who enters this process. But obviously she's coming from a fact of the Vietnamese culture that, you need to take the time. She does mention that at some point. But again, I think that's not even just Vietnamese culture. I think that's every culture. You should take some time before you just, jump into proposal / marriage. So he hasn't dated an Asian woman before. Not that he's really worried about that so much. I don't know if he necessarily is closed off to dating Asian women. It's probably just never happened before. Not that big of a deal. He tells them that tells him why he loves her, and her aunt asks, "Can you make her feel safe?" Because that's kind of the biggest thing for her. Obviously, she doesn't always feel safe with men in her life because no man has really shown her that she can be safe in a relationship. And he says, of course, she deserves someone who, chooses her always, is what he says. And the thing is like, obviously, if you've watched the episode, you know how this turns out. And it just makes me even more angry at how where this is going to go. But I'm going to keep it in the moment as much as possible and not get too far ahead. But just, yeah. um, her aunt seems to like him too. And her aunt asks, "How would you feel if you weren't the final man?" He kind of hesitates a little bit and says, like, "Would it kill me?" Yes. And he says that if we get there, I couldn't get there without your blessing in terms of the proposal. And he says, you know, sorry, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna confuse her. So her mom basically says like she is not going to get the blessing, like she's not gonna give him the blessing because of course, like she's mentioned, she thinks they need more time. So he isn't getting it from her mom. But not to worry. He's hoping that maybe he can get it from James, her brother, in a bit. So they say to him that they want her to have a long relationship. I'm assuming she hasn't really had that. Um, so that's kind of their main thing is I guess they want to ensure that she's going to have a long-lasting relationship with whomever she ends up with, whether in this particular case it's Devin or Marcus. So her mom asks, I think her mom and Jen are talking to each other at this point, and her mom asked did Devin say he loves her, and she says, "He loves me. I feel that I can express myself with him." And she asks her mother, "Do you like him so far?" And she again says to her, "I think you need more time with him." And this is where she says in Vietnamese culture, it's too short of a time. So at this point, we take a break from the meeting and we're back in studio with Jesse. We're going to take a little bit of a pause here. And we got Dylan, Jeremy, and Jonathan here. And they say, you know what? We're just here to give some support. We've heard some rumors, and we just want to be here to be a support system for Jen as well as both of these guys that are left. Let that sink in. So now we're back to them, back to the meeting, the meeting of the parents. And her brother tells Jen what I feel about Devin. Or he says, like, what do I feel about Devin? He's like, I'm not sure. He then says, I think you are giving, she's sorry, I think you guys are a good match. You've had similar lives, but there's another guy here. So there's that. And then her brother talks to Devin and he's like, so how do you know she is your person? And he says he feels confident in them. She keeps me grounded. And I thought this was a really good thing because, again, I don't want to excuse the fact here, like, I'm trying so hard, y'all, to not go far ahead here in my thoughts and my feelings, kind of reading this back after knowing what happens. It's always about him and how she makes him feel, which is great. I'm not saying that shouldn't be a part of it, but it's always about him. I never hear him say about her. So what I loved here is that her brother's like, so what is it that you do to make her feel grounded? I think that's a great question. So he says, they've been pretty communicative. And he's like, I feel I have helped her in her growth. He does mention that he just found out how she felt about him. Because obviously we saw the struggle of him not knowing whether or not she loves him or not. Um, and I guess her brother says, like, was she not being vulnerable with you? And he said, not that she wasn't being vulnerable, but she doesn't kind of separate the two of us, that she kind of views us as a group, and and not necessarily viewing us as individuals. Which, you know what? He's kind of correct with that. I kind of know what he's saying here. It's probably the only time I'm going to give him a compliment today, but I understand what he's saying here. So with this, he kind of says, with the proposal coming, like, do I have your blessing? And James flat out says, I can't give you the blessing right now. Wow. I feel like this is the first time that I've seen family members of the Bachelor or Bachelorette not give a blessing, or even of the contestants of not giving a blessing. And it's a little refreshing on the one hand. So it's interesting. It's interesting. So Dylan and Jen are talking alone, and she tells him that try not to get into your head, because she kind of it's very true. He gets very quickly into his head about things. So she tells him, don't get in your head about this. Everything's going to be fine. I love you. Then Devin is gone for now. We'll see him later. Next, we got Marcus. And she says, if I got an I love you from Marcus, it would change everything, which is very interesting. Again, try not to go ahead here, but later on, when they're having the conversation, her and Marcus, about kind of what happened with them, and she kind of says, like, even if he did tell me he loved me, it wouldn't have changed anything. That is not what you said in the moment. In the moment, you literally said it would have changed everything. So I question then, were you lying when you're talking about it would change everything, or are you rewriting history, maybe? And you know what? Maybe it's more about she was more of a hopeful in the moment when she's saying this, because Jen had the opportunity, of course, as we know what happens, she had the opportunity to say, yeah, it would have changed everything and probably would affect him. You know what I mean? She had every chance to do that, and she still didn't, despite how this turns out. So I'll give her that. So he tells her family about being in the foster care system, being in the army, and James appreciates that Marcus cares about her, but he was kind of hoping that he would open up about Jen. Or, like, I guess, like, kind of opening about him, but it's true, not one time in this situation, because he was talking a lot about, being in the foster care system, being in the army, talking about the experience that he had in the army, which is very a traumatic experience. He's been in nothing but poor guy in traumatic experiences, in his life, for different traumatic experiences, but not once. It would have been one thing if he's talking about all those things and then was able to be like, but, meeting Jen, blah, this and this for me. He didn't do that. So I clocked that too. So for James to say, like, I kind of wish he was talking a little bit more about my sister, is I get that 100%. And so I don't know if they're saying this, like, right here in front of everybody, or if we're broken off into groups here, but someone does ask him, do you think you are getting to a place where you are in love with Jen? And he feels like he's getting there. It's the constant, I think I'm getting there. I think I'm getting there. I think I can. I think I can. I know I can. And it's like, okay, but Marcus, I guess to a point where someone has to pull the plug. And I don't know who that person should be. We find out who that person should have been and who it is, but it's like someone has to pull the plug here, because I guess, I mean, again, in a normal process of meeting someone, falling in love with someone, this is how it goes. I couldn't even say that I was falling in love with my boyfriend until maybe 4 months into the relationship. That's a normal progression. Now, every progression is different depending on the relationship you're in, but that's a normal progression to some extent, right? Whatever is normal for you. This is a very fast process. So it's kind of like, I know it's only been like 9 weeks or whatever, but still a couple of months. I feel like in a couple of months, you should at least be at a point of, I am falling in love with you, at least at the bare minimum. and he isn't there. He's not even there. I mean, he says that he was. I guess he said to her that he was falling in love with her in the hometowns, but that he wasn't in love with her, which, I mean, again, what are the chances that any of these people have gone past the falling in love part? Like, if we think of the progression here, we go from hometowns where everyone's saying, I'm falling in love with you for the most part, right? To fantasy suites where everyone's like, I'm in love with you. So in span of a week, y'all went from falling to being just flat out in love, you know? So I do understand like the progression is a lot, but again, you knew what show you were signing up for. There's that. And yeah, I don't know. Because the thing that kind of I'm gonna get to it at the end here. I don't want to get into it now, but I am curious that if it was someone else on this show and Marcus was on the show and went as far as he did with Jen, would it have been the same thing? Like, I don't want to put it there because I really, really, really like Marcus despite all of this. So I don't know, but anyway. So they said, are you ready for what's to come? And he says, I think I can see it. Again, when you're having someone being like, I think I can, I think I'm getting there, I think I can see at the end of it. That's so not enough at this point. So not enough. And I don't know how she allowed him to still stay here. How he stayed here over Jonathan. Because I think Jonathan was a lot further ahead in his emotions for her than Marcus ever was. Now I know it's also about her feelings for them, but for whatever reason she was holding on to this thing from Marcus that we've discussed in length that James also brings up as well. And I'm like, okay, me and you are on the same wavelength. We're on the same page here. Um, so then he talks to her mom, and her mom says, are you in love with Jen? And he says he feels like he's getting there again. We kind of hear that again. And he says, I've been beating myself up about it. I want to get there. Engagement is a big deal, but I think I can get there. Then Jen talks to James, and James asks, like, do you think he is giving you the love you want? And the thing is she says, no, but I think he's close. Close isn't enough in this process. At this point, it's either you're there or you're not there because engagements are on 2 days. Or 3 days, I think. 3 days. So it's just like, close is not enough. And James says, Marcus seems to fit that mold of not being emotionally available. And Jen is shocked by this. She's like, you think so? And she makes excuses for why that's not exactly it. Like, he's not like the other guys that she's been with. Now, he may be a nicer guy personality-wise, he may be a really great guy personality-wise, but when it comes to the relationship aspect of it, there is no difference. He's emotionally unavailable, and you've said you've been with a lot of emotionally unavailable men in your past. So with that being said, there is no difference. So he says he is a good man. And he asks, how long are you willing to wait for him to get there? That is one of the most important questions that has not been posed to her yet. And you can definitely see her wheels turning and being like, I haven't thought about that before. And I don't know how long I would wait for him. Is a week enough? Is 2 weeks enough? Is a month enough? Like, is that too much versus someone who says he's there? It's yeah, I think it's interesting, and I'll get to it later on when we get there, but she says one thing for why it won't work out with Marcus. I think it was this. I think it was her brother posing this question to her that made her realize this is not gonna work with him. It's a very simple thing, but I personally think it was this. So, James gets emotional, though, kind of talking about how how proud of her he is and being there for her and everything like that. He gets very emotional, and I got emotional watching him get emotional, and then I got even more emotional watching him get really emotional because then he got emotional live, and I'm just like, "Okay, I'm done." Um, he loves her so much. But, Jen and Marcus talk alone, and she asks, like, "How do you see this ending for us?" And he's like, "Today, I think that was progress." And you can tell on her face, she's like, "I need a little more than progress." Because she says to him, she's like, "But Marcus, the engagement's this week. Like, when's the progress going to reach its deadline? When's the end of this progress, And she's like, "What exactly are you struggling with?" She's questioning, is it about me? Is it this process? Is it the engagement? Like, what is it like what's going on in your head that's giving you like pause? And he says, no, he doesn't think it's about her at all. He thinks it's about maybe the pressure that he's putting on himself. And he says he's trying because he does believe that it's possible. Again, we should have thought it was possible a while ago. So we're back in the studio and we asked James, "How are you feeling right now with everything, how that kind of went there?" And he says, "I'm not too happy. With how things turned out, I'm not too happy." Man, oh man, oh man. I don't blame him because I'm not either. When we get to it, man, I'm going to tell you my emotions because I was feeling everything. Okay. So we're on the final date with Devin. And we meet up with these two ladies who are spiritual guides, and they're going to be doing a spiritual ceremony today. And it seemed very, very therapeutic. I kind of like this. I would do this. They're kind of, doing different things. They're holding rocks, speaking to the rocks, throwing the rocks into the ocean. Like it's a whole thing. It was really cool. Um, so it does seem to help both of them open up with each other, in this moment because it's, and, talking about their fears. And after the ceremony, they kind of delve a little deeper into those fears. And yeah, it seems to have really been, like I said, therapeutic for them. And then we have the night portion of that date with Devin. And he says that he trusts her and she loves that because it feels like he sees her. She's never felt that before. And he has a gift for her. And I thought this, God, this motherfucker. He gives her a gift that was so sweet. I think it was a necklace of some sort. And he said that he got this from one of the shamans on their one-on-one date. And the shaman, we kind of see the clip of it. The shaman basically tells him to kind of hold on to this and, but to give it to someone who is probably deserving of it and who he loves and cares about and who he can kind of trust with something like kind of like using this as like a piece of him and kind of giving it to the person who he can see himself with. So he gives her this and so angering. And she loves that. And she yeah, she appreciates that and she loves that and it kind of shows like he's taking this seriously for her, right? So, yeah, that's basically that. It's the end of that date and we will not see Devin until uh the day of the reckoning. So, now we got the date with Marcus. It was a little different here. Maybe Devin had this as well. We just didn't see it. But we have Marcus and Jesse talking to each other. And Marcus kind of says to him, he's unsure if they are meant for each other. But at the end of the day, like you kind of think, oh my God, is he leaving? Like, is he actually taking that step to be like, you know what? This isn't it for me. So I'm going to pull the plug. No, he says that he's going to still do the date he says maybe, spending this day with her, it's gonna be good. It's gonna hopefully get me there. So we're still gonna go on this date. But Jen has other plans. Jen has other plans, okay? Um, Despite the fact that he says he cares about her deeply, like I said, Jen's got plans. So we'll get to her plans in a minute. But Jesse asks the tough question. He says, do you love her or are you unsure about her? Like there's gotta be something that's holding you back here. And he says he feels torn. But Jesse says, and I'm telling you, I'm holding on to this because I think this is important for a little later. Jesse says to him, if you feel you are really in love with her, you gotta tell her, or you might lose her. So we see her after he's had this conversation with Jesse, he's back in his room. We see her heading to his room. And, she gets there, she's a knock on the door, and yeah, I don't think he's going on that date after all. So they sit down to talk, and she tells him, proposals are tomorrow. We're running out of time here in terms of your feelings. Are you going to um basically be ready? Do you think you're going to get there by tomorrow? And he feels like he's tried. Or maybe she says she feels like she's tried. She feels like she's tried. But he just doesn't like he doesn't get there. I don't know. But she feels like he can't envision the future with her. And I personally think that could be part of it. And he feels like he has been kind of getting there with his feelings and how he's feeling. But he says, you make me want to keep trying. But again, and I've had these conversations with my boyfriend too, it is not my responsibility to hold your hand through the tough times. Now, not when it comes to his feelings. His feelings are there for me, but there's other things. Just generally speaking, it is not my responsibility to hold your hand through things. I'm looking for a partner, not a child. You have to know when you need to get there. If you're constantly looking over your shoulder to make sure I'm still there to help you get through things, you're never going to get through those things. No matter what those things are, you're never going to get through them. So in this case, Marcus, you can't constantly be looking over your shoulder to see if Jenn is there to hold your hand through your discovery of your feelings for her and then go accordingly. Because what if she is not there? She's basically looking for that confidence that even if I'm not physically there with you, you're working on what you need to work on to get there. I can't be responsible for you in that sense. I just can't. That's a lot of work for one person to do. For you to ultimately probably never get there. So he says that he does see a future with her. And y'all, in this moment, he decides to tell her that he is in love with her. I'm sorry, what now? All of a sudden now, Marcus, you're there. Now listen, I like Marcus a lot. As I've mentioned, I really, really, really like him. And kind of watching him in this moment made me very emotional because I think this man has a lot of internal work to do that's over and beyond whatever Jenn can do for him. But this sucked. This sucked. And I feel like he did this because Jesse says, oh, you gotta tell her you're gonna lose her. So then if I tell her, I'm not gonna lose her. But in the words of JoJo, it's just too little too late. Yeah. So, yeah, he says he sees it with her and all that. And there's a lot of tears, but then she kind of has to excuse herself out of the room for a minute because she's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, whoa, this is a lot. Like, how did we go from you're not there yet to all of a sudden you're there? Like, what? So I would have needed to excuse myself as well. So she's feeling very frustrated with him. She feels like the certainty in the relationship is dwindling. She goes back to him and he says that he is afraid of losing her, but that's so not enough. I don't want you to be afraid to lose me. I want you to want me. There is a very big difference. And honestly, I kind of want to thank Jen in this moment because it's like you don't think it's a difference of I don't want to lose you versus, I want you, I need you, whatever. And I don't think anyone should need anybody. I've always been that kind of I never need you, I want you. So don't get it twisted kind of thing. But there's a difference between those two losing, only wanting to lose you and wanting you. And in this moment, she says, but I'm kind of sick and tired of people not wanting to lose me. And she's so right. She's so right. And he says that he's been trying to be honest with himself about what she needs. And he's like, I am not giving you what you need. So if you know that, why are we here, son? So she says, I opened my heart to you, and maybe I got lost in it, and I gave too much away. And she says, I'm done hinging my future on someone who is just afraid to lose me. And I thought that was incredible. I need to make that the quote of like the century. He says, I'm scared I won't find someone like you again. And you know what? You won't. But that doesn't mean you're not going to find someone who better suits you, but you're not going to find someone like her again because we're all one of a kind. And sometimes your best, the best for whoever you are, comes along once in a lifetime. But that does not mean that that once in a lifetime opportunity is going to continuously stick around waiting for you to realize it. So I've been someone's best and I divorced him. Never looked back. So she leaves and in the moment, he says, I feel like there is something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. You are dealing with trauma, and because of your trauma, you have trauma responses and things like this. She's dealing with her own thing too, and you're dealing with yours. We all have them. But the best way to work through those things is therapy. He's like, why do I keep sabotaging my own happiness? Again, I think that I'm not a therapist, but again, I feel like that is just because in the core of it, he had parents who were too chicken shit to love and raise their kids and abandoned them at daycare one day and never came back for them. You're dealing with your abandonment. So before they get me, I'm gonna get you first. That's basically what he's doing. And I can't be mad at him for that. And she's not either. But like I could not be mad at him for that. Um yeah, he's dealing with his shit, unfortunately. So we're back in studio now with Jesse and Marcus. And he says he did a lot of reflection to see whether or not he was right for her. When he got clarity, he wasn't sure if he made the right decision or not. Or sorry, when he got home. Sorry, not clarity, when he got home. He wasn't sure if he made the right decision or not. He says it was hard to let her go. And, it was probably that selfish part of him that was kind of holding on to her, couldn't like let go. I would potentially agree. Jenn comes out to talk with Marcus. And they basically just want to make sure that each other is okay. And Jesse asks Jenn, when did you know it was over? And she says there was always something off, which I'll give her that. But she says maybe the moment when Devin came to her door and she kind of thought that she was losing him and she didn't want that. And she says when she came to Marcus's door to have that last conversation, she knew it was over. Now, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say two different things here. Number one, I disagree. I don't think it was then. I already said where my thoughts are. I think it was really and truly her brother kind of saying, girl, like, how long are we going to do this for? But secondly, I have a problem with this. And I mean, yes, I know this because there's two different people in this process, but are you really truly trying to tell me that your decision to end this relationship was based on Devin expressing himself in that moment when he had been expressing himself prior to this anyways? Let's be real. But you're really trying to say you hinge your future with Marcus on Devin? Why couldn't you have hinged that future with Marcus on how Marcus was presenting himself? You know what I mean? But again, I feel like in this moment, I don't know, I have a little bit of a problem. Like, it's not that others haven't done it, but I feel like people have had a little more couth and haven't like legitimate been like, well, when Devin came to the door, like, I feel like it would have been more like, just how I felt with the other person in my life or at that time or whatever. Just kind of, they kind of do subliminally, here's that where it's like, well, one Devin. And I feel like this is just isn't the moment to talk about the other guy. Just kind of talk about him, talk about what it is about your relationship with Marcus that made it be, this isn't going to work. Because I feel like that's kind of, I don't know, I felt like that wasn't a good idea to tell him, well, it's because of Devin. But anyways, back in Hawaii, we see Devin with Neil Lane, and we are all very excited to see Neil Lane on the TV as well as on our TVs live. And he's here picking out a ring, and he does pick out a very gorgeous oval cut diamond ring with a gold band. It's pretty pretty. Then we see Jenn and Jesse talking, and she says, I woke up this morning thinking very differently about today and how she thought this was going to go. And she says, I'm choosing myself. And she says, as we kind of seen that something was going to happen in this conversation with Jesse, she says, I'm not going to let Devin propose to me today. No, y'all. She's going to let herself propose to Devin instead. Because, I mean, she is, after all, the first Asian Bachelorette. We never touched the mansion in this season. We started traveling from moment one. Everything's been so different with this journey for her that why not let her take the reins and propose to her guy? And you know what? I loved this. It is so freaking unfortunate that it's clouded in all the feelings which we'll go through. And I thought this was incredible. I thought her wanting to take her power back and prove to him how much she loves him by proposing to him is amazing. And I love that for her in that moment. But we go back to the studio at this point, and Jesse's like, I'm sure you're wondering why I'm here interrupting this beautiful moment. Because usually this is the part where you're gonna see them getting ready, see them getting engaged, and it's gonna be happily ever after and all of that, right? This is usually the time where that happens. Well, we're not going to show that because of how things have turned out since the engagement. They do get engaged, that is confirmed, but things have gone obviously very bad since. And he basically says to respect Jenn, who gives a shit about Devin, but to respect Jenn in this moment, we're not going to show that yet. We're going to see that a little later. And I'll give you my thoughts and my feelings on that when we get to it. But we're going to get Jenn on stage and we're going to talk about what happened. And let me tell you, y'all, this is usually the part where my writing will slow down. No, no, no. We have about 2 pages left to go because, my God. But we're going to take a break here for now. When we come back, we will jump into essentially is kind of the second half of this. Yeah, we'll be back. And I am back. So let's jump into this, shall we? So, Jen is here to talk about what's happened since the engagement. And she's just crying because obviously she has seen herself say that she's going to take charge and propose to her mans. And yeah, and she's upset. And she said it's been a hard couple of months. She says that they did leave engaged. They were happy. And then as soon as they left, things were just different. She said he was pulling away from her, the promises that he had made. When we kind of know what all those promises are from watching the show, he wasn't keeping. He was not calling or texting as much. She was confused. She didn't understand what was going on. She felt secondary in his life. He wasn't including her in his family as much. They had a couple thing, or I guess they were kind of doing like these meetups with each other, obviously, to make sure they were still seeing each other. So they had one of their couple things that they had about a month ago that had been planned. And God, the night before, he calls her and he calls off the engagement, y'all. He called off his engagement, not even just a breakup, because that's bad enough, but he calls off his engagement over the phone. So are you really trying to tell me, motherfucker, that you couldn't go see her like a man and break up with her in person? You're such a coward that you can't face her and break up with her? Y'all, there might be a little more swearing, so bear with me because I'm livid. I feel, as a person who is not even with this man, who just watched their journey, I feel hoodwinked. I feel lied to. I thought this guy was one of the best choices for her. I thought even if Marcus could have gotten there, she had 2 good men left. Not even just that. She had, get down to the hometown, she had 4 good men left. Because really and truly, Jeremy is a great guy. Jonathan's a great guy. Marcus is a great guy. I thought Devin was. And turns out he's not. And I feel hoodwinked. I feel angry for her. And I was very emotional watching this back. Like, I was an absolute mess. I was crying. I was angry. I was all of the emotions as if he broke up with me. You know what I mean? And it's that's the part of it for me that's really, really angering, and where the anger comes from for me is I feel hoodwinked by him. And I can't even imagine how she feels. Just completely lied to. And not only that, to add to it, I feel even more upset that Sam was right about this guy. That makes me even more mad that Sam was right. So, yeah, he said that he didn't. He said, so she says that he said he didn't love her anymore and that he regretted proposing to her. Let me repeat this to make this very clear. All of a sudden, after 2 months of being together, after a proposal, he no longer loves her anymore, and he regrets proposing to her. I can't even begin to imagine the pain you would feel in that moment of someone regretting proposing. Now, as I've been open with, obviously, throughout this podcast, I've been through a divorce, and I was very angry at times, and when I'm going through the process and kind of wanting this to be done and over with, and it was a fairly quick process in comparison to others, but for me, it still felt like a really long time. And I never once, though, said that I regretted marrying my ex, because I don't. I don't regret meeting him. I don't regret marrying him. I don't regret any of those things. Um, because at the end of the day, my relationship with him was real. The love I have for him was real. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I regret any of those things. So for someone to sit there and actually say, I regret proposing to you, it feels just like such a slap in the face to hear someone say that to you. I can't imagine how she felt in that moment. And I'm gonna try not to get emotional here on the podcast, but it's just like, how can someone be so cruel? How can someone be so cruel to the person that they claim to love? Was any of it real? So, I think she said he knew it was different, or yeah, but she has spent the last month trying to emphasize and understand where he's coming from. Girl, that is better than I ever would. Um, but I think what she's also trying to say here is that's especially the understanding aspect. That's totally understandable. You're going to try to want to understand what went wrong. But to even give him any sort of empathy or sympathy in any kind is so better than anything I would ever do. Um, because he doesn't deserve that. But that's her searching for the answers as to, how did I get this so wrong? How did I not see it? What happened? And I think what, try not to cry, what is amazing with this is, I think a lot of us, especially women watching the show, who have dealt with heartbreaks like this, that is so big and huge, and is done on television at that too, is, it's I just you watch this and you're just like, "Yeah, I know exactly how that feels," and I think that's why I was getting emotional watching it. I'm getting emotional now because it's like, um, we understand what she's going through. We don't fully get it because 'cause we're not in her shoes. We're more in that relationship, but just generally speaking, we get it because we've all been there. And that's the part that's so frustrating and angering, to kind of see this, and it's like, this guy fought tooth and nail fighting with other guys to have his time with her, growing whatever feelings he says he was growing for her, and it feels like it was all a lie. Despite what he wants to say in this moment, it felt like it was all a lie. And it's I man, um, she's like, maybe it was the pressure of the engagement, because she also says, and I think again, thank you again, Jen, for saying this, because I think people tend to forget this. I think we can all use our common sense and be like, oh yeah, like, this isn't easy coming out of this. This is more than just a television show. These are people's lives. She says coming out of the TV show, out of, filming and everything, it's so difficult to come out of that and go back into the real world and still maintain your relationship. Yeah, this is why a lot of the relationships on the show don't work. You look at the statistics of how well the show actually works, and it's barely it's low. The percentage is low. We don't have a lot of people who stay together. The hell, our own host of the show who has done this process is not with the person that he picked at the end. So it just kind of puts that into perspective, that it works for some, but for the majority it doesn't. And because it's so hard, that it just doesn't, right? So she's, trying to be like, maybe it was because of that. And she kind of said the bartering, the fact that she's kind of like bartering with him to kind of be like, okay, we don't have to do this, but we can do this. It's just that's heartbreaking. And she says, okay, maybe we don't have to do the engagement, but we can still date, we can do that. And it's like you want to kind of just hug her and say, no, no, this man is literally couldn't come to you and say that. Couldn't come to you and say, you know what, babe, the engagement, the pressure of that's so much right now. I feel like we need to take a step back. Let's take a step back, but I'm not done with us. I'm not done with you. I want to still be with you. He would have done that, but he didn't. And we've all done it. I've done it. So that's why this is really killing me, because it's like I've been there and it doesn't do anything because they're so shut down. It just doesn't matter anymore. Um, and again, I've also been on the other side of that as well, with choosing to divorce my ex. It wasn't exactly an easy thing for him to accept, which is why there was a lot of animosity between us because of that, because I just kind of needed him to understand I was not there anymore. I did try, and then when it just we're not going to go into the nitty-gritty details of that, but there was a lot surrounding my decision to go through with it. But I've been there where I quote unquote bartered, and it is, like I said, it doesn't go anywhere. And it's heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking to hear her, and she's still in the thick of it. My situation that I'm looking back at was like 10 years ago when it's only been a month. Um, and you're not as removed from it. Like she's still in the thick of it. She's still in the thick of healing. So, and she says like he was just checked out. He didn't want to go to counseling with me. Um, he didn't want to try. And like I think we can all establish we're all shocked here. Jesse's shocked. We're shocked because I think back to this process with Devin and how adamant he was that he was in love with her, how much he was so in his head that he wasn't telling her telling him that she loved him, and how that was messing him up for you to turn around and do this. Like yeah. So they haven't seen each other in over a month since the breakup. And she has been trying to see him, though. She says she's been trying to see him to basically at least have that conversation where they can get some closure. But he's been ghosting her. He's been ghosting her. This asshole has been not giving her the time of his time to have this conversation with her that she deserves to have. You deserve to have that closure. We all deserve to have that closure. And he can't even do that for her. So, of course, Devin is here. So Devin comes out, and y'all, there are people booing. There are some people booing in the audience. But the majority of it was people was just silent. Not a clap, not a whoa, not in the world. It's like, we have nothing to contribute to this because we don't like you. And Jenn tells him that how this convo is going is not what she wanted. She wanted to be able to have this conversation off camera because I think something that they said to each other is that their relationship is their relationship, and they owe it to each other to keep certain conversations private. But not only that, probably to have this conversation privately, and then at least at first, and then do whatever you want to on camera at that point. But they owe that again to each other. And she says, I can understand him maybe changing his mind, although I don't, but like, sure. And she says, I can't understand is is ending the engagement over the phone. And then the next morning, she says she wakes up to him following girls on Instagram, but not just any girls, one girl in particular, and that girl is Maria. Okay, so what I'm going to say here, because I've had about enough. Listen, y'all, I've said this already. I love Maria. I love Maria. As a fellow Canadian, as a fellow Ontarian, I love Maria very much. But Maria turned this down. And all of these men out here thinking that it was going to be Maria or Daisy, guess what, y'all? It wasn't. This is your Bachelorette. And to constantly say that you thought it was going to be this person or that person, like it's it's like not giving Jenn her dues. There wasn't a single woman on Joey's season who wasn't gorgeous. Now, some of them might have been dark in the inside. Cindy, I'm looking at you. Okay, that other one from Hawaii. What was her name? Leah, looking at you. Okay, some of you might be dark in the inside. But everyone was gorgeous. Okay, including Jenn. So to constantly be like, oh, I thought it was going to be this person, or I thought it was going to be this person. Why can't we be okay with it being Jenn, though? And the reason why I say this is because it's not just Sam or Devin at this point now, but Marcus too. Y'all, I read an article last week that said Marcus also thought that the Bachelorette was going to be Maria. We all fucking did, okay? We all did. But then we all read where she turned it down. She went on, which podcast was it? Was it File Files? She went on File Files before there was no shoes there. She went on there and explained that she was supposed to be the next Bachelorette, but turned it down because she could see that Jenn wanted this more than she did. And for Jenn to have wanted this so badly, and then it ends so badly, is angering. These men can go just there's I feel like the only guys, and I'm going to mainly talk about like the top 6 here. I feel like the only guys in her top 6 or so who were serious about it being her was Jonathan and Grant. That's it. All of these stupid little boys didn't take this seriously. I have never once. And I do understand the shock of Jenn becoming the Bachelorette. No one was expecting that. No one was expecting that. I was shocked. Ava was shocked. We were all shocked that it was Jenn that was Bachelorette. But guess what? You tend to get used to the idea that it's Jenn. And when they explain, and when you finally understand, okay, this is what happened, it's okay, well, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to enjoy Jenn's season. I'm still not over here wishing it was Maria. I mean, I would still love to see Maria have her own season if that's what she ever wants to do in the future. Or have some part in this franchise again if that's what she wants to do. But I'm over it. I'm over it. I've never seen a bunch of men be so butthurt that it was someone else. As if she's not gorgeous. Like, what the fuck? I'm so upset for this. So, it's worse though, obviously, coming from Devin, but her now ex-fiance is following Maria of all people. And where do you think that's going to get you, Devin? Where do you think following Maria is going to get you? Especially after this. Where do you think it's going to get you? It's not going to get you anywhere. That's for sure. It's not going to get you anywhere. So, he says, listen, I failed you. But what I felt was real. Sure. If that's what you want to tell yourself, because I don't believe you. Jenn doesn't believe you. The audience doesn't believe you. Hell, Jesse doesn't believe you. No one believes you. This wasn't real for you. And she says, which in these moments when she's like coming at him, she's like, "Oh yeah, it was real, huh? But then why did I see you partying in New York with Jeremy?" Jeremy's like, "What?" He's like, "Yo, leave me out because I have nothing to do with this." He's like, "That's also my ex-girlfriend. I'm not trying to start shit." Like, it's it's funny, but at the same time, I see what she's saying. She's saying, like, if you're so hell bent and about this whole thing that you facilitated, then why would I see you partying it up in the club with Jeremy? Like, what? And it's gonna get worse, guys. He says, he's like, "This is a little bit of a different conversation than what I was expecting. I was expecting something different. Were you expecting her to be all, 'Oh my god, Devin, I hope that you're okay?' And like, did you expect the conversation to be like with her with Marcus? Because no, sir. No, sir. That's not what's gonna happen here." And he was like, "To be clear, I was meeting a client in New York." She's like, "Oh, in the club? That's that's where you were? You were in the club with your client?" And he's like, "I was hanging out with a friend." And she's like, "Well, I hope you had a lot of fun in the club." Like, she's going off on him. She's like, "I hope you're having a lot of fun in the club." And he's like, "Am I not allowed to have a life?" And everyone collectively in the audience is like, "Oh, no. No, you're not." I mean, Jen says yes, but I say no. For at least give me 2 months minimum. Although, I guess it depends on how long you're with her, kinda like a severance package. Give me some time, okay? It's only been a month. It's only been a month. You really trying to tell me you can't give me a month before you're out here following my friend who you thought was gonna be the Bachelorette and going out to the club with my ex-boyfriend? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't give me a minute. So it's like, no, you can't have a life. You're not allowed. Because if I'm over here crying my eyes out at the end of my, not so much failure because it's his failure, but the demise of my engagement while you're out there having fun and partying it up with Jeremy, that's a slap in the face. I'm crying, you're partying. Like, it's like you're celebrating the end of your engagement. Meanwhile, she's grieving the end of her engagement. So he says that I had doubts that, I suppressed. Who told you to suppress anything? And he's like, "I told you that." And he's like, "I have been honest with you." No, you have not been honest with her at all. She says that, she says we were together for 2 months where you had one foot out of the door. She's like, he's like, "Okay, yeah, okay, you're right." He constantly said, "I was being honest with you. I was being open with you. I was telling you all these things." But then he's like, "Okay, yeah, I might have been a little bit late on telling you things." What the? Okay. Honestly, I came out of this believing he was gaslighting her throughout the entire thing. That's how it felt. It felt like he was gaslighting her at the bare minimum of like, "Okay, yeah, that's your journey, but like, this is mine kind of situation. And this is how my journey is correct. Yours isn't." And it's just like, Al. So he's like, "I know how much this hurts you." She's like, "No, you don't. I wanted to be with you, have a family with you, but you had one foot out the door." And me, that's, you don't know how I feel. It's kind of what she's getting at. And she's like, "You have been promoting the show, posting memes, of Sam." What? I thought you and Sam hated each other. I was starting to wonder. Um, she's like, "I was heartbroken, but you didn't care." And he's saying that his feelings were true. Don't believe him. And he apparently told her, on the breakup call, that because I guess, like, okay, so we back up a little bit. He was kind of saying, like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." She's like, "Oh, you're constantly saying it, you're sorry, thinking that that's gonna make things better." And she's like, "You know what? Come to think of it, on the breakup call, you're telling me, you're sorry, you're sorry, sorry. And I guess at one point he's like, I can't keep telling you. It was a 15-minute phone call. It's like, I can't keep telling you I'm sorry. I gotta go now. That just proves to me that this guy never gave a shit about her because not saying you have to be on the phone forever in a day, but like 15 minutes, like you can't even carve out half an hour of your day to ensure she's as okay as she can be after a conversation like that. So she's like, you didn't fight for the relationship, like, or when did you fight for the relationship? He assumes he did fight for the relationship, didn't. And and then I guess Jesse's like, okay, we're gonna take a little bit of a break here. And as we're going into commercial, we hear him say, what is going on here? Like he's so confused about where this conversation is going. Me too, my guy. I'm also very confused as to just you in general. But he we come back and he says, listen, I don't want to talk about post breakup. He doesn't want to talk about the breakup. And it's like, okay, but my guy, you're you're basically saying that you don't want to deal with her emotion of the breakup, post breakup. You can't handle the pain you put her through. So thus you don't want to deal with it. And it's like, you don't get to dictate how this goes. You don't get to be the dictator of how this one goes when you're the one who caused this pain to begin with. You're going to have to suck it up, princess, and take it because that's what you do when you love someone or care about someone at the bare minimum. Show her you care. So he basically said, I just wanted to make sure that, she's okay. That's why he's here, y'all. He's a martyr. Then he's like, we saw her flourish and I couldn't rise up to that. I couldn't be what she needed me to be because she was so much better than me because she grew so much. And it's like, okay, but then wouldn't you, it's it's like, oh my God. I've never heard someone say, oh, you grew so much and you flourished so much. And I just can't deal with that. Like, who says that? No one. Like, nobody. Nobody. I'm sorry. Own it and say the reason why you don't want to be with her. I don't know what the hell the reason could be, but your whole martyrdom of, oh, you just flourished and you're so you grew so much and this and that is not the reason why you're not with her. Get out of here. So he's like, I contributed to your regrowth. Okay. You were compromising like what you wanted. No, sir, she wanted you. How is she then compromising on what she wanted? She wanted you. And you couldn't take that or you couldn't handle that or I don't know. Like you can't sit here and be like, oh, she did this or she's compromising. No, get that out of here. You know exactly what she wanted and you just didn't want her back for whatever reason. And that then Jesse's like, Jen, I know this has been a tough night. And he tells her, you may not have found your person on the show, but you have shown how strong you are. But we are going to have to watch that proposal now. He's like, are you okay to watch the proposal? Like, do I have a choice? I really think we should have X-nayed on the proposal at this point. I really do. I love what Jesse said to her in this moment, but I really think we should have X-nayed on the proposal in this moment because it's like, what is the point? Y'all, I have no notes about this proposal because I took none. I was crying the entire time watching this proposal. I was angry. I was cussing. I was all the things. I was feeling every emotion in this moment. Watching her watch this back was heartbreaking. And I don't understand why we had to put her through this. She seems so happy and carefree, and hell, he did too. And it's just like, To what end did we need to watch this back at this point? You didn't play for us before. We don't need to. We we didn't need to. We didn't need to. I think we should have let this one go. Um, I think it was in poor taste to play this. I understand why, but I really think it was in poor taste because I felt nothing. Knowing what knowing what we knew, seeing what we just saw, the blatant disregard for her feelings, honestly, in this moment from Devin, I did not care about this proposal. It was incredible to watch her be like, I can do this and I can propose to him, but that's about it. That's all I could take from that. I was barely looking at the screen watching this proposal. It was really, really, really difficult to watch. And I really think they should have said, you know what? I think we're gonna skip it this time. And I understand that that's not the show, but I think we could have skipped it this time because it wasn't like it wasn't it wasn't like Ari and Becca, right? Where they basically broke up within weeks of the proposal. This happened a month ago. And they have been together for about, what, 3 or 4 months after the proposal? This just happened. And she's still in it. She's so in this right now. She has not fully healed yet. She wasn't given the opportunity to start that healing process because she was still holding on to this hope that she could have this off-camera conversation with him and he couldn't be decent enough to give that to her. She's still healing and she's still hurting. Like, I'm telling, she was sobbing. She was sobbing. And honestly, there's not much I can give Devin, but I don't know if he felt torn up because he knows America's gonna hate him after this, or if he really truly cared about her, but I'm gonna say it's probably the first option more so than anything. But he's just watching her, and I couldn't quite read him enough, or maybe I was refusing to read him, but it was this was torturous. This was torturous for the viewer to watch, and imagine how she felt. Like, we could see how she felt. She's I honestly wish I could have how I was feeling that moment is I just wanted to plug my ears and give her a hug. I think in that moment, she just needed a hug and tell her she's gonna be okay. But just it doesn't feel like that right now. She's gonna be okay. It's just, it was really in poor taste, Bachelor. Really was. Bachelorette, whatever you want to call yourself right now. It was really in poor taste. Playing this proposal back. Because it felt like we're doing this at her expense. And I didn't like it. That's all I really have to say about the proposal because I was checked out after all of this. After it's done, Jesse says to her, I hope there is a small part of you that feels empowered because you did it your way. She did this whole process her way. And that's a part of it that I really like about her, although she hasn't always made the right decisions throughout. Sometimes she's made other people leaving the show about her. She hasn't always been making the best impression on me, and sometimes I'm making the best decisions, but she really did do this her way. And she says, I don't have any regrets proposing to that man on that screen. I'm proud of who that woman is on that screen, but that man does not exist anymore. But I am that same person. And I love that. um, I love that. And she says that she will find that man and someone else who will fulfill those promises that he was unable to keep. He says that that man loved you but, I still do." And she says, "You don't just fall out of love the next day." But Jesse asks Jen, "No, we're gonna give you the final word because we don't give a crap about what Devin has to say. What do you hope he learns from this?" And she does say a lot more than what I'm about to say here, but I think this kind of sums it up. She says that she wishes that he understands the weight of his words because they mean something to someone. We're banking on your words, and then when you, as men or anyone in a relationship, when you're making those promises to somebody, to the best of your ability, keep them. And if you think you can't, don't make them. Because then we can keep our expectations where they belong, at whatever level that is, depending on your relationship. But bye, Devin. I hope I never see you again. If he ends up on Bachelor in Paradise, I'm going to be pissed, y'all. I'm going to be pissed. I'm telling you that right now. But I'll tell you this. Under these circumstances, with the fact that they're not together anymore, this is how it's going to go. I don't think Jen's going to do this show again. I think this is it for her. And it would be up for me. But then again, you never know. We've had bachelorettes on the show before. We had Becca, and that turned out great for her. So, But here's what I suspect, if anything. If they invite Sam onto the beach, you bet your sweet ass they're definitely inviting Devin onto this beach as well. 100%. If they have Jenn on this beach along with everybody else, if they do decide to do that, if she wants to do that, I think it'll be best to have them at different times, as much as you possibly can. But we'll see. We'll see. That's not until next year, so we don't have to think about it. But that's basically it for the main part of this finale. We do get a sneak peek of Joan's journey, and basically the sneak peek is her meeting Mark Anderson, which is Kelsey's dad, and Kelsey was also there as well. Y'all, we've seen the pictures. I posted the cast for Golden Bachelorette a few weeks back. Mark is the hottest guy there. I'm saying he's the hottest guy there. We'll see. I kind of need to see these people move, you know what I mean? But definitely the hottest guy there. And I can see it. I don't know. How funny could it have been to have Joan and Mark in the audience together, sitting separately from each other, and they ended up together? Like, how amazing would that have been? So let's remember that for the end of the season. But that's coming up next. Because that starts next week. I'm excited for it. It was funny though. Joan at the end of the sneak peek was like to Kelsey, "Call me mom." Yeah. But anyways, that is it for this episode. This was a lot. This was taxing, emotionally speaking. And then we're going to jump into Forbidden Love. Maybe I'll do B90 next because yikes, y'all. Yikes. But anyway, that's it for that. Again, as a reminder, there won't be any episodes later or hoping to get this out as planned tonight. But with that being said, there won't be any episodes out tomorrow, and the next episodes will be Forbidden Love. That's what I'm going to be working on next. But with that is all for this episode. So if you like what you heard, please rate, review the podcast on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, don't forget that you can also share us with everyone in your life if you really love this. And I do want to read those reviews. I'm definitely getting 5-star ratings, but I want to read those reviews. So send me those reviews and I will read those 4 and 5-star reviews on the podcast. Also, We're on every one of your favorite podcast apps, every one of them, including you can find us on YouTube at Reality Tea Times 2. If you want to connect with us, you can do so by going to either Facebook or Instagram at Reality Tea Times 2. You can also find us on Twitter, TikTok, Reddit at Reality Tea Times 2 Pod. We also have our email, which is at realityteatimes2 at hotmail.com. Definitely want to hear from you guys. And we also have our new website where you can listen to all of these episodes. You can review the podcast on there as well. You can connect with me in any way, all the stuff. It's all there, and you can find me there at www.realityteatimes2, all spelled out, dot podpage.io. It's there. And don't forget, I also have my other podcast with my friend Mikkel, Next Take Podcast, where we talk about all kinds of different topics. But you can find us on any of your favorite podcast apps over there as well. Or you can also go to YouTube, and you go to Next Take Podcast, as well as our website, which is solo.to/Next Take Podcast. So yeah, there's that, and that's basically that. And again, don't forget, if all of this information is overwhelming, we do have all of the links, everything in our show notes. But that is it for now, guys. Thanks. Bye.